Welcome to the Ask Brien radio show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Like every single week since, let's see, our first show was in January 2017. We did have a pilot in December 2016, but technically I like to say we started in 2018. So we've been doing this 17. So we've been doing this for a few years, and we have a couple of things that have helped people out. We're trying to help business owners learn something, whether or not it's a specific subject, like it could be SEO, could be Facebook ads, could be inventory control or financing, how to operate a business, or sometimes we'll just have a success story where somebody has started out with, hey, I started out on the kitchen table, and today, I got 100 people working for me, so I was able to make it and, follow my dream, and you might be able to follow us too. Each week we try to help people out, and we all know that Ask Brien is spelled ASKBRIEN, and everybody wants to know why is Brien spelled EN. Most people spell Brien BRYN or BRIN. If they have a friend, that's typically how it's done. And we're not Irish, although we might have some Irish blood here, but we're not Irish, and no, it's not going to the O'Brien pub. So, but we have our original, or not original, I should say, but at least for the last 5 years, she was our co-host, right?
I am the original. I am the OG. I am the GOAT.
Did you say OD or you have OCD?
All of the above.
Oh, God.
OCD, ADHD. You have an acronym. I got it.
Well, going to law school, that's how we had to learn the law. Everything was an acronym. So that's why I have all those acronyms now. That plus I grew up in New York and have all that sarcasm. So deadly combination. All right, Tracy. So, and our co-host is Tracy, and I'm going to introduce her. But Tracy's going to explain to our viewers or listeners, I should say, it could be either one. We're on Facebook Live and YouTube. Please explain why Brien is spelled with an E.
Well, I would be remiss if I did not start out with the most important E, which is our engineer, Jen. Yay!
Thank you.
I thought the biggest E was for ego, and that's me.
No, that's the smallest E for the biggest ego. Let's make sure we're really clear on that one.
I'm not clear at all.
I might not have been here in a few weeks, but I have not forgotten. But I do think maybe the new term that we could use to describe you, Peter, is you're just a little extra. I've been holding out on that new E for you. You're just a little extra.
That's true.
Oh, my goodness. But let's get to what's really, outside of our engineer, the second most important E that we have on the Ask Brien radio show is, of course, our experts. And we've got an amazing one today whose business actually ends up starting with an E, so that's a bonus. But our experts are really just the absolute core and heartbeat of the Ask Brien radio show. They are specialists in their fields, industry experts, thought leaders, and they are helping all of our entrepreneurs shortcut their learning curve because they've put in approximately, a minimum of 10,000 hours in their area of expertise. And usually that could take, 5 years if you're doing that 40 hours a week at 50-ish weeks a year. But we know, all of us know, that is not the case when you're a startup. So let us educate you to help you shortcut that learning curve. And I've got empathy for Jen because I know that you get very enthusiastic when it comes to the Ask Brien radio show, so much so that you get very
excited! That's from Sam Kinnison.
That was terrible.
That was terrible, and the one thing I did forget was my earplugs.
Well, what did it do to your eardrum? Another E.
That too. That's already long gone after 5 years.
Oh, yeah. So what is that word empathy? I never heard about that before. What does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. I think we should just skip on because if you haven't learned it by now, you're not going to. So
Yeah.
let's just bring on our guest who probably I have empathy for at this point because I'm hoping he's still here.
Well, he's probably deaf now, too, but yeah. So is our guest still there?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Hi. Welcome. Thanks for having me on. Welcome
No
to
problem.
the viewers or listeners.
So before we get into our interview, people don't know your background before you so you started a company, and we're going to get into that company, discuss it mostly on the show. But before you got into the company, I think it's called Insight or something along those lines. What were you doing before that?
Okay. Well, that's a fun story. So I started in entrepreneurship when I was 24 years old. That's in 2000. So it was 25 years ago, and I ran another basically IT systems integrator at that time from 2000 2004 that ended up going bankrupt. So there's a story about perseverance through failure in the works there as well. And in 2004 we started Insight. It's been over a 20-year journey, and we've been on the Inc. 5000 9 times. We have just under 150 employees, so it's been and it's 100% a private capital table, so no external capital. And we built that company over the last 20 years with my co-founders. So,
how many co-founders were there?
So there were originally 4, and we ran that together for, like I say, about 16 years. Then one of the co-founders left, and then last year, one of the co-founders retired, so it's just down to me and a single co-founder, and a pretty really awesome leadership team as well. You know, not just the two of us.
So, what was the reasoning or rationale to start this company?
Well, you know, it's kind of interesting when we started Insight following the following this kind of business failure, and it's a great question because I think having a good why is so important, and I don't think we actually had a great why when we started the business, and I don't think we experienced the success that we experienced until we kind of sorted out the appropriate why. So let me maybe break that down for you. So when we started it out, it was like, well, we're bankrupt. We don't have anything else to do. We need a way to make a living. And, we could probably leverage the skills that we developed for the 4 years and figure something out. Of course, you can imagine that that's not very inspirational to a team, and that's not going to, let's say, attract people to a mission. And I've become convinced over the years that if you really want to have a successful organization, you have to create a super compelling vision. And it's been funny. I think this analogy has actually hit home, but I've used the example of Minecraft because I used to play that with my kids. And when you span into the world, there's nothing to do, and it's not that fun. And until somebody says something like, "Hey, let's build a castle," putting that vision together starts making the game interesting. It gives you purpose, it gives you meaning, and it starts making the game feel like play rather than just kind of a slog where people are throwing blocks at each other. And that's the same with business. If you set a clear and compelling vision that's interesting and compelling and that people want to be a part of, you can really engage a team. So that was something we really had to learn was you have to have a better reason, a great reason why, if you want to engage customers and clients and business partners and all that kind of thing.
So I've looked at the website, but people don't know. So try to explain to people what is Insight and what services do you cover?
Yeah, the business model is fairly straightforward, and kind of everybody needs it. We do IT support. We're basically outsourced IT. So we handle the functions of like an IT manager and a help desk, and we handle IT strategy. And so we're really helping our customers solve problems, implement computer technology, support computer technology. And most people work with somebody like that, or if they get big enough, maybe they have an internal team.
So first of all, when you say customers and clients, you're referring to the business owner as the customer client, not the actual people that are using that particular business. Is that correct?
So we have a vernacular. I don't know if everybody shares this vernacular, but when I say client, I'm usually talking to the group of the brand, let's say, and that brand becomes a client, and it's like all the people inside that company are collectively considered the client. And a customer would be more like an end user at that customer who maybe calls us for computer support. So that's just the way we talk about it at Insight.
And but let's go a little bit more over the services that Insight offers. So let's go over what are the services you mentioned. It's kind of vague or overbroad. What specifically services do you offer? You say help desk, you say technology, but that's kind of a big term. What is the term? How does that work for a business owner?
Yeah, so perfect. So the industry calls us IT managed services, and the way I like to think about it is there's 3 tiers of it. So that at the very top of the tier, if you think of a pyramid, at the top of the tier is strategy. So our customers need to know what to do with technology. They need to know whether they should implement AI or what kind of computers they should get, what kind of Wi-Fi, what kind of security policies. So we start by deploying a human that acts as essentially their IT manager or virtual CIO, if you will. And then there's a middle layer that's like support. It's not support. It's like the maintenance. So think patching, think managing all the stuff that you don't see and touch, the alert logs and all the things that make technology work in the background. In a large company, that role is called a systems administrator, but we handle that function for our customers. And then at the bottom of the pyramid is what we call help desk. So that's basically when the users need support. So if your computer is not accessing the system it should, or if you have a new user starting and you need them to be set up appropriately, or there's been a user that's terminated and you need them to have a turn down sequence, or anything's not working, then you call us for support. And then we also do project-oriented services. So if you need a new Wi-Fi infrastructure deployed, or you need to like decommission a server to move to the cloud or something like that, we also help our customers with those types of services.
Now, with those services, I imagine this is all remote, or is there anything that's on site?
Yeah, we cover we call it the last mile, right? So a lot of it's remote. The vast majority of support requests, we can remote into the machine and we can handle it, but we also are expected to cover the last mile. So our customers do have Wi-Fi points. They do have offices, and they need a computer set up on a desk. We handle that. So we handle everything from the remote to the on-premise stuff. It turns out that most of the stuff is remote, but there's definitely enough stuff that requires an on-site touch that's an important component.
And do you cover cybersecurity?
Absolutely. So we cover cybersecurity across all of our customers, but we do have advanced cybersecurity options as well. So for companies that have, let's say, a compliance requirement, or almost all the customers who want cyber insurance have like a policies that they have to have. But cybersecurity services have become, let's say, incredibly important, almost foundational in the IT service portfolio.
So if I'm running the Widget Corporation, we're a big company, by the way, Widget Corp, we have $1 billion in revenue, and somebody does a DoD attack or an attack on our systems, is that something that you could handle, or that's beyond you?
So that's what's called, the vernacular for that in cyber is called incident response, or I know you like acronyms. I was listening to the front of the show. They just called IR. So the way that would typically work, especially in a big corporation, but even in a small corporation, is most likely you would have cyber insurance. So if you got an attack, like you would call your cyber insurance, and the cyber insurance company has what's called a panel. And what they do on the panel is they assign a pre-approved incident response cybersecurity company. So we can do incident response, but you typically want to run through your cyber insurance appointed lawyer, and through your cyber insurance appointed incident response team. That incident response team would work with us as the internal IT team to manage the breach and figure out what to do. That's typically the way it's done. So you have an IT team that's in-house that manages it, tries to prevent it, and we're doing that for the vast majority of our customers. And in the event of a breach, and luckily we don't get very many breaches because we're so proactive with trying to prevent these things from occurring. But typically you would work with your cyber insurance company to get an incident response provider to assign to the breach.
And that would include stuff like ransomware?
Yes, exactly. There's all kinds of different formulations for attack, ransomware, but there's also like a big attack vector is like somebody transferred a bunch of money to a phony account because there was, they thought that was a customer or they thought that was a business partner, for example. So there's all kinds of ways people can have losses, it's not just ransom, but that's a big one.
And are you on some insurance company panels, so you're actually doing that work, or are you exclusively only doing the internal IT work?
Yeah, we focus on being the front end of the cyber for like internal IT. So we're like the cybersecurity department for the customer, and that doesn't mean we don't work with a network of technology partners and other people to make sure that they have a total encompassing cyber solution. But we focus on being the internal IT side of cyber. So the external or post stuff like cyber insurance or the incident response, that would typically be a firm that specializes in only that. And you kind of want a separation of powers there, because we're trying, if let's say we were culpable in the breach, you'd want a third party to figure that out. And that's better for the client.
And do you have businesses of any size, or do you pretty much only deal with companies over 50 people or 10 people, or is there a minimum?
Yeah, great question. Our sweet spot niche is somewhere between 10 and 150 employees. So typically when a customer gets more than 150 employees, we have customers that are like that, but most of them came on with us when they were smaller and then they scaled. But what we find is that companies with more than 150 employees start to have the resources to build out their own internal IT. And companies that are smaller than 10 kind of have a hard time with maybe the cost associated with doing IT in a professional way that we want. So that 10 to 150 employee range is pretty much a sweet spot for us. And we have a geographic sweet spot. So we're basically in Northern California, Bay Area, and Southern California. And those are kind of our two, kind of LA, San Diego. We have a pretty big presence in San Diego. So those are our kind of markets as well.
Do you have a physical office?
We have two physical offices. We have a physical office here in the Bay Area, NorCal, and then we have one in San Diego. But we have employees that work across our region. So a lot of what we do, like we said, is remote. So as long as we have enough employees in the market where we're serving, where we can dispatch the customer when necessary and manage like logistics of hardware, we feel like we can serve the area well. But the office, we do have two offices, but they're, let's say, a lot less important than they used to be prior to 2020.
And what about cloud and storage and stuff like that? Do you do any work for that, or you just let the companies do that work on their own, and you just help if there's a problem?
So it's an interesting question because, well, just to clarify, almost all of our customers, in fact, I could almost say all of our customers, it's hard to think of even one, that isn't using cloud services at this point. So, think about like Office 365 as a cloud service that almost all of our customers have adopted. But Office 365, just because it's in the cloud, doesn't mean that it's self-managed. There's a million places you can click in it. You have to add users to it. You have to disconnect users to it. Things can go wrong in it and need to be troubleshot and debugged. It's a very complex software package that most customers don't understand natively. There's even complex licensing requirement, like which one should I buy? So as you're looking at, your cloud solutions, you still need great consulting, you still need great support, implementation, and management, even if it's a cloud platform. So cloud just changes the location of where the software runs, but it doesn't necessarily completely eliminate or change the need for strategic advice, maintenance and management support.
And you also offer consulting services, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
So
we offer consulting services on the cyber side. We offer consulting services on what would be called business intelligence. So that would be something like people trying to figure out what data they need, what reports are going to help them, especially when data is in multiple different sources and they need to consolidate that data and they want to create kind of automation triggers off that, or implementation services of technology. Even things as simple as I mentioned, like Wi-Fi or implementing a small PC, but bigger implementations as well. So if people need to implement ERP systems, which is an enterprise resource planning, or any kind of tools and technology, we do that consulting as well. And if we don't do it, we typically have a network of third parties that are very competent that we can refer.
Well, thank you. We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We'll be right back.
Is your
I am, but I got interrupted by a voice when you were saying something.
All right, so until Tracy comes back on, we're going to ask you a little AI. It's a big thing right now. How does your business get affected by AI? Are you using AI, for instance, to help your customers?
Yeah, well, this is a topic I'm super passionate about, and I think everybody needs to be really thinking about AI. Maybe even before I get into that, answer that question directly, I could just set up a stage. To me, AI is like the world bestowed a tractor on everybody's farm, and they're out hoeing their garden, and they're really tired at the end of the day, and they come back in and say, hey, what's that thing? And it's like, well, who knows? We got to get back to sleep so we can go hoe the garden, not realizing the power of this tool could completely transform exactly what they're doing. So to me, it's a very transformative tool, and I think that there are kind of three things that constitute AI right now. And the first one I think everybody is aware of is a LLM, or a large language model, and that's like ChatGPT, and that can help you create content, edit content, and so forth. But there's a second thing which is really powerful, and that's something called a workflow. And AI can really automate a whole bunch of workflow in your organization. And it uses large language models as reasoning centers and mechanisms, and you can build these workflows. And there's some really cool tools. There's a tool called Gumloop. There's another tool called N8N that are very powerful. And then the third thing, and you'll hear this term out there, is called agentic AI. And this is when you start combining workflows such that it takes actually a role almost like a human being. So to answer your question directly, at Insight right now, what we're really trying to do is figure out exactly where LLMs can fit in, save us time, create more customer value for less money, basically. And the other thing that we're looking at is trying to help solve that same problem for our customers. So where are the opportunities and surface area for easy workflows to be implemented for our customers? Maybe I'll take a pause and let you digest that and maybe ask a follow-up.
Well, if I digest it, I'll have to have a Diet Coke. But anyway, so where do you think AI will be? This is a visionary thing. We only have 2 minutes left before our next break. So the question is, where do you think AI is going to be in 10 years? There's a lot of people saying that AI is pretty much going to be like taking over the world, and a lot of people are going to lose their jobs. Where do you feel that AI will be in 10 years? That's just a guess, or 5 years.
Okay. Well, in 2 minutes, I'll just say AI is going to transform our jobs, not take our jobs. One of the things that people are missing when they say AI is going to take their jobs is they're missing the demand side of the equation. If AI can make it such that we can produce goods and services at a fraction of the cost, then more people will want those goods and services. More people will demand them. The demand goes up, and so the total volume of production goes up substantially. So if you have one human able to produce 10 times as much, you're not going to have like 1/10 of the total production. You're going to have the same production. It's just going to be available to a heck of a lot more human beings. And I think the availability of those products and services is going to make our life a lot better. And we're just going to have to be workers pairing with AI to deliver more value to the marketplace. So I don't know if that vision helps, but I don't think it's going to be everybody loses their job. I think it's going to be everybody goes from walking to riding a bike or driving a car while using AI tools.
What about robots in factories? Won't there be robots with the programming language to be able to do many of the functions?
Well, so yes. And we're running against the clock. I do think that there's going to be a lot of jobs that are completely automated or close to completely automated, but that's just going to create a huge amount of opportunity for new jobs. This isn't very different, by the way, than what happened in the agrarian. We used to have 80% of our laborers working on farms, and now that's something like 8%. So, it doesn't mean that we don't have work to do. Just because we automated it just means we have a much more plentiful food and other work to do. And I think that's a much better construct of looking at what AI is going to do.
Well, thanks. We're going to take a quick break because our sponsor is Legal Steps. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. And now a word from our sponsor, Legal Steps.
And we want to say thank you to our sponsor, LegalSteps.com. It's spelled LegalStepz.com. And when you log on to LegalSteps.com, they are there to walk you through the process. It could not be easier. They are really there screen in screen. So like you can kind of see what your legal expert is doing, and you are following along, making sure that you're answering the questions the proper way. And so there's no room for error because you just follow what they're doing. If you get to the point where you're a little bit confused and don't know, what the right answer is, they'll just do it for you. These legal experts that I'm talking about have over 30 years experience. So you're not working with someone who's brand new. You're not working with someone who just figured this out, the week before you did. You have experts with experience who know the law and know this material front and back. The material that I'm talking about, you can register a course on registering a trademark, form an LLC, form an S corporation. So anything really that you kind of need to jumpstart your own business. You've got this great idea, this great product that you wanted to market and or sell for however long. Now is the time to do it with the help of the experts at LegalSteps.com. The courses are affordable in the grand scheme of things. They're under $150 each. So you're not going to spend thousands of dollars to just kind of get off of square one. Super affordable, especially if this is something that you wanted to do for a long time. Don't let $150 get in the way of that. Check out LegalSteps.com, LegalStepz.com.
Well, thank you, Jen.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Legal Step. All right, that sounds like a great program. Tracy, are you there?
I am here. I had some technical difficulties, but I'm back.
Well, you should have. Hold on. You should have called our guest.
I know. I was thinking about that,
He's
but
the
I
IT
couldn't
guy.
because I was in technical difficulty land. But I really want to continue the conversation about the AI because it's so fascinating. I know everyone's trying to learn like a sponge. And so where we left off before the break, you were talking about the trends in the workforce. And I just love to explore more. I think just even talking through that and connecting those dots make people feel a little less anxious. What are some of the other maybe behind the scenes or revolutionary thoughts you have around AI that people may not be talking about?
Okay, well, there's two fundamental things I think that I have strong opinions about. One is that, leaders, there's a great analogy here. So back in, I want to say 2000, everybody remembers Netflix was huge. Not Netflix, Blockbuster was huge, right? And so they played the broadband internet thing absolutely wrong, and they went out of business. Meanwhile, Netflix came in, played the broadband internet thing properly, and became one of the biggest companies on the planet. And I think when you think about a disruption, something as big as AI, you have to think about it as a coin with two sides. It's like on one side, there's the opportunities AI provides you, and on the other side is the threats. And so you have this perfect example of Blockbuster and Netflix, where one side played the opportunity and the other side didn't mitigate the threats, and one went out of business and one grew substantially. And that's how businesses should be looking at AI. If they're avoiding it, not acknowledging it, not leaning into it, they're going to lose to competitors who are figuring it out and figuring out how to deliver the same service dramatically more effectively. So I think it's a threat in that regard. But on the other hand, for businesses who can lead properly through this disruption, I think there's huge opportunity to deliver a lot more customer value. And I think the same trend is actually true at the individual level. It's like you're still going to have a job if you combine your skills and experience along with some light degree of mastery in AI. So like I said, just learning how to use a LLM, that's like learning how to ride a bike. You're going to go a lot further. Then if you learn how to work with workflows, you're going to be able to operate like you're driving a car. And so what you want to be as a worker in this is a non-resistant AI job person. It's like, how do I do my job really effectively with the AI as a partner? Because those workers are going to be invaluable.
Yes, and I think that's such a great analogy with the Netflix and the Blockbuster. And isn't it true that Netflix actually went to Blockbuster and offered to sell them like their concept for like $5,000 or something crazy like that, and Blockbuster turned them down?
Probably. The funny part about how I would answer that is I'd go to ChatGPT and ask it the question, and it would probably tell me the exact story.
Right.
But yes, yeah, there was an opportunity for Netflix to parlay their dominance in retail video outlets to be in the Netflix, but they dropped the ball. They didn't play the disruption. The disruption there was broadband internet, and they didn't play it properly, and they lost big time. And what we're trying to do with our business community is make sure that they don't do the same thing. We feel like if we can educate our customers and start helping them slowly but surely learn and implement these tools, they're going to be defensible in their marketplace. And it doesn't matter what they're doing. We have a lot of wineries up in Napa, for example. And it's like, well, how are they using AI to better serve their client? And I'll just give you one thought I have on that regard. So they could potentially now with AI, they could take their customer base that they sell their wine direct to, and they can actually scrape those customers' information on, let's say, LinkedIn, and then they could look for corollaries. Let's say they found that a bunch of their customers went to the same, let's say, business school, or same university, and they can make a special offer for a group private event for their alumni at their winery. And they could do all this using AI workflow and automation and create a much richer, better experience that would kind of be impossible to do without an AI workflow. And so I guess my point here is that the boundaries have changed. What was possible to do isn't the same, and you need people who are innovative, who understand what the tools could do, so that you could figure out what kind of automations that you can need so that you can innovate your product or service offering in a way that puts you ahead of your competitors, or at the very least, meets them where the marketplace is at so that you don't end up being Blockbuster.
Right before the break, what would be the one thing where you would recommend people just start, just start somewhere?
I mean, to me, it's really, and this is kind of my business, it's really having the right technology, thought leadership, and partner along your side. If you don't have, forward, because most people run they're a lawyer, and they understand, they invested heavily in the law, or they're a manufacturer and they invested heavily in that thing. It's they're not going to be at the forefront of all the technology advancements. So it's you have to have the right technological partners who can guide you through this and start introducing it to you. Because what should you be looking at? I mean, that's hard to sort out. I'm going to conferences and I'm watching a bunch of YouTube videos and following thought leadership. And so it's are people going to be able to sort through all that on their own? Probably not. Just like anything else, they need an expert, and they need a partnership that's going to help buoy them up and guide them appropriately. So that's the number one thing they should do, is find a technology partnership where they're getting that thought leadership and guidance from somebody that has an investment in their overall operation.
We're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Ask Brien radio show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. We'll be right back. Well, nobody has the ego.
True.
Tracy?
Oh, I'm here. I just wanted to let that ego play itself out. Okay, so Mike, you've been such an amazing guest, and and shared so much valuable information. What is the best way for people, if they want to get in touch with you and continue this conversation, or have you be their right tech partner? What would be the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Hello? Did we lose you?
I think we lost him. Wow.
How about now? Sorry.
Are you there?
There you are. Yes. I'm not sure. Were you able to hear my question?
Yes, I was. I heard you. Sorry about that. So I'm trying to be more active. I'm trying to be more active on social media these days. In particular, providing some thought leadership on LinkedIn. And I'm making my social handles available at an application called Linktree. If you haven't heard of that, that's kind of interesting. It's a place where you can consolidate all your social stuff. And that's at linktr.ee. And my handle there is the Chapit Perspective. And my last name is Chapit. P as in Paul, U as in Union, T as in Tom. That's Chapit. And you can find me there. Or you can look for me on LinkedIn directly. Just search for Mike Chapit and my company's Insight, and you can find me there. And if you send me a request, you can follow me, or you can send me a request a link, and you can get and you can get to me that way as well.
Okay, great. Well, I want to circle back to one of the things that you mentioned in the course of the conversation. It was about leading with the right values when we were talking about embracing AI, but really leading with the right values is the core value for you as a business leader. Can you share why that's so important to you, and maybe a really good tip about ways to implement those values in leadership?
Sure, although I've done like an hour-long content on this, so I'll see what I can get into 5 minutes here. But
well, that just means we'll have to have you back.
Sure thing. So the first thing I'll say is I want to eliminate one of the biggest misnomers I think is out there in core values, and that's that they should never be what they should endure across time. And I think that's only true if your core values are perfectly helping you execute your mission or your strategy. Otherwise, it's like you should iterate your values over time to get them perfect so that they're in alignment with your strategy and actually serving your organization. And I'll leave you with a couple thoughts to think about what makes for good core values. The first thing that values should be is they should be memorable. If people don't understand them, or they can't say them, or they don't know what they are, I mean, they're useless in your organization. So they have to be memorable. And there's some great techniques to making them memorable. Use of mnemonics and just being clever about it. The second thing is they need to be clear, and those two things work against each other. So at our values, we have the easy to remember values, but we also have a bunch of statements below them that explain exactly what those values mean in practice. An example with that is one of our values is called servant's heart. And then there's a bullet that says, we believe a leader's purpose is to serve their team so that team members can serve customers and each other. So now servant's heart's really easy to remember, but the bullets, and there's 5 of them underneath there, make it a little bit more clear. And it would be great if they were just memorable and clear, but they should also be round. So what I mean by round is that they complete. They should cover all of the human behaviors that are going to make your organization successful versus just some. If only some of the behaviors that are necessary for your organization to win are covered in your values, then you're going to have errors happening, people behaving inconsistent with what you need them to behave. And then the last piece is I really believe values need to be deep. And what I mean by deep is they need to be backed by solid philosophical principles and literature. So, for example, the bullet point I just read to you about the servant's purpose is to serve the team so that team members can serve each other. That comes from a book by a man named Pat Lencioni, who has written a whole host of books, and he has a book called The Motive, which is all about servant leadership and why it's so critical. So you have a distillation issue. You have a book that's distilled to a bullet, which is put into 2 words, which is actually all under an even more memorable acronym called RSVP. So you have, and then the final thing I didn't even say is that your values need to be aligned to your mission. So not all values are right for every single company. If you're an internet startup, for example, you might have to be really innovative. But if you're a services company like Insight is, then you have to have a service orientation like that service heart. But if you're an internet company who's really innovative, maybe you can't afford to have like a super high service, something like Ritz-Carlton. So your values need to be aligned to your mission. They need to be complete or round. They need to be memorable so that they're accessible. They need to be clear so that people know what they mean. And then they need to be deep. There's got to be a lot of thought behind what those bullets are. And usually that's in the great thought leadership of the businessmen and business thinkers and great philosophers that you admire, and that's baked into your value set. So maybe I'll stop there and see if you have any follow-ups.
Well, I mean, that's so comprehensive. And like I said, we could actually probably do a whole nother hour on that. And maybe we just might. But Peter, any last thoughts from you? You've been really great. We've so enjoyed having you on. Thank you.
Well, unfortunately,
thank you so much for having me.
Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time left. We will have you back because there's a lot more stuff we could go over. But you're listening to the Ask Brien Radio Show on KHS 1220 and 98.1 FM. Over and out.